The Joe Rogan Experience.
You didn't have to deal with that at RT, but what do you think happens when someone is a pundit and they're on a television show and they're talking about something that has these global implications? Do you think they get talking points? Do you think they're allowed to express their own personal opinions, or are they informed that they're supposed to toe a certain line?
I think there's varying levels. I think that it would be naive to say, okay, these people are paid to lie. I think that the vast majority of people working in corporate media are lackeys for the empire. They really truly believe that, they believe that America is the greatest country in the world. They believe that we're the world's policemen. They actually believe that these countries are evil and they need to be taken out to instate kind of global hegemony. I truly believe that they cater to the line of American exceptionalism. And that's pretty sad, but also pretty dangerous, because they're the perfect mouthpieces for U.S. foreign policy. I mean, they essentially are stenographers for whatever the government is laying out, which is really disturbing, because the premise of journalism is to actually challenge power and challenge the U.S. government, especially when you are working in America. You're an American citizen, and there's all this destruction going on behalf of your government, and you're not challenging that, especially when it's war claims. Especially when you have assholes like John Bolton claiming, all of these things are happening in these channels and bodies of water, and people are just like, okay. I mean, goddamn, you should see when fucking Mike Pompeo was talking about how Hezbollah was in Venezuela. And these people just printed it. They're like, well, Hezbollah's in Venezuela now. It's like, what are you talking about? You're literally just printing what the Trump administration's saying without even questioning these claims. It's disturbing.
Do you think that the people that are talking about it on TV are just saying it because they really don't understand what they're talking about, and this just seems to be a way to cover the subject in sort of a way that is acceptable to the network and acceptable to the party and acceptable to this sort of ideology, whether it's left or right, whatever ideology they're participating in?
Yes, there is definitely that as well, where they know kind of the line that they can't cross. So even if you individually believe, you think that climate change is an existential threat, you think that the war in Yemen is a serious thing that you should address, I think that you definitely get kind of knocked down in the editorial meeting before, and you're just like, okay, no, I can't do that. But what I can do is just, talk about whatever.
It's so weird.
The advertisers will agree with.
In this day and age, there's not like a really respected independent source of news.
Right.
That you've got the online stuff, which is there's some online stuff is very good, but some online stuff is so entangled with insults and bullshit and emotions and distorted perceptions and ego, that it's like it sort of discredits whatever they're trying to promote, whatever ideas they're trying to get across. There's no Walter Cronkite. There's no one person or no one organization who you emphatically trust with their perspective on the news. Everything is either left or right. Everything is like flavored by an ideology.
Right. It's very ideologically
I don't have
driven.
a place that I go to that I know I can get clear, unbiased, emotion-free, objective analysis of any international issue.
Right.
It doesn't exist. Unless you can tell me of one. What do you go to?
I go to Real News. I go to Democracy Now! And
Democracy Now! Is super left-wing, right? Left-wing leaning, but you think
left-leaning. I go to places that are not. This is the problem, like with capitalism and trying to have an independent media, is that you need funding, and you need funding from like donors and grassroots sources, because once you get funded by these right-wing billionaires and corporations and states and governments, then it becomes very ideologically driven, and then you're kind of just catering toward what those interests want you to present. And that's why the Empire Files does what it does. We're basically based on donations now, because Trump's sanctions on Venezuela shut down the show a year ago. So we did a big donation drive, and that's why
you guys on Patreon?
Patreon, we're on GoFundMe and just PayPal, but we're just trying to survive on a very minimal budget, because I don't want to take, I don't want to like lobby to corporations or states or go that route, because I don't want to don't want to answer to anyone other than myself. But then you just come with a whole host of problems. You're not getting your message out there. I mean, that's why it's incredible for you to have me on. But that's why the fake news mantra resonated so much with the Trump campaign, because people are extremely disillusioned with the corporate media. You know, New York Times, Washington Post, these so-called Beltway publications that pretend to be like the arbitrators of our objective reality, they are the premier advocates of fake news when it comes to U.S. foreign policy, you know, American exceptionalism, and corporations and like the corporate line. They're always the ones towing the things that basically prop up the system. And so I think people, you know, became really, really just attracted to that whole fake news mantra that Trump was saying, because people have an extreme distrust in the corporate media because of the Iraq war, because of all these things that have happened.